All right. Well, in today's live video, I want to talk a little bit about NASBA CPE, NASBA training, because there's a lot of confusion and maybe some myths about NASBA. And I've just had a couple of experiences this week, so I thought I would come on here and just explain the facts. And again, you may believe something different, and that's fine. If you choose to continue to believe what you are believing, that's fine. I just wanted to share some facts with you in case you are one of those people that thinks, oh my goodness, I have to have NASBA training if I'm in internal audit. Because, if you ask yourself the question, does internal audit need NASBA training? And the answer is no. You may not have realized that, but the answer is actually no. So why am I bringing this up? Well, every so often on Say Risk Academy, we have people who reach out and say, hey, I don't see your NASBA number on your certificates. Are you NASBA certified? And so we have to respond back and say, no, we're not NASBA certified. This is what NASBA is. We're an international organization, and so we choose to follow international standards instead of NASBA. Now, you may look at that and think, what? Okay, I'm going to explain what that means here in just a minute. And then today, I got an email from another training provider who was lauding NASBA and saying, look, you need to have NASBA training, and we're a NASBA provider, and here's the reasons why you need to have NASBA training from us, which actually is not true. But I'm going to go through and I'm going to talk about both of these now. So you can understand what that is. Now, the first thing that people don't understand is what NASBA actually is. It's an acronym that stands for the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy. Okay, so NASBA was created for CPAs and for the different state boards of accountancy in the US. It's its own entity that actually makes millions of dollars a year by making people get NASBA certified. So they charge the training providers, and it depends on how much you have in training, but usually it's a significant investment for a training provider to get NASBA, quote unquote, NASBA certified. Okay, there's a lot of hoops to jump through. And the reality is a lot of people don't need it. So who actually is required to have NASBA training? CPAs in about a handful of states. Literally only about 5 of the US states require you to have NASBA training. Now, some require a portion to be NASBA, some require all of it to be NASBA. It just depends on individual state boards of accountancy. But again, this is for CPAs. And so I'll use myself as an example. I am a CPA. I have been a CPA in the state of Idaho, in California, and now in Arizona, where I live. None of those require me to have NASBA certified training. Okay, so even in my instance, I don't live in any of those states that require it. And so the reality is 99% of people don't need NASBA training. Now, on the other side, NASBA has spent millions of dollars creating a multi-million-dollar business trying to convince everyone that they need to have NASBA. Okay. But the reality is you don't. So especially if you're in internal audit, the Institute of Internal Auditors does not require NASBA. The Association of Certified Fraud Examiners does not require NASBA. ISACA does not require NASBA. And so the fact is, most, unless you're a CPA in one of those few states, you don't need NASBA training. Okay. Now, let me talk a little bit about, because like I said, I got an email today from a training provider trying to say, oh, you need to have it. Here's the reasons why they say you need to have it. Well, how do you know that your auditors pay attention to continuing education you buy for them? So one of the NASBA requirements is you have to take these polling questions or you have to take quizzes. And so if you've been on webinars, other things like that, it's really kind of annoying to have polling questions pop up or have to take quizzes at the end, right? Well, that's a NASBA requirement. And that's why a lot of training providers require you to do that, because they believe that by having you take a quiz or by having you have to do a polling question if it's live, that it means you're actually listening. Now, it's not the case. It's a control that they put in place, assuming that that's what's actually happening, but it's not. And again, believe me, don't believe me, but have you ever done this? You're on a webinar, you're multitasking, you're kind of listening, you're doing some other work, and all of a sudden somebody says, polling question. And you're like, oh shit, got to come back over here, answer the polling question. Okay, now I'm going to go back to multitask again. So if you're doing that, which is what most people do with those, it doesn't really show that you're actually paying attention or that you actually learned anything from the training. So again, they say, how do you know they've learned anything? Well, again, technically that's up to the individual. If you want to, do a quiz, that's fine. So anyway, it's just really silly. And like I said, I wanted to come on here and just kind of do a public service announcement on it, to let you know that, especially if you're in internal audit, you really don't need NASBA. Now, why does it matter to you, right? And why did, C-Risk Academy, we chose not to be NASBA compliant? Well, as I said before, we're an international organization. And so instead, we choose to follow international standards for certifying individuals. Okay. And because we feel like that's more relevant, they're not requiring us to pay tens of thousands of dollars a year for the benefit of having NASBA on the certificate. And it doesn't make sense for us to increase the cost to people that are taking our training just to have the NASBA training if you don't need it, right? So the reality is, again, you can go get NASBA training if you want to. Realize you're probably going to pay more for that training because the training provider has to